This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update, sponsored by Book Outdoors, and my esteemed colleague Mike Gast is here, former Vice President of Communications at Campgrounds of America, and an Omaha fan. He loves it. He loves the weather. So
yeah, just out there basking in the sun.
Yeah. And then our guest today is Leah Bright, an agent who works with the Levitt Recreation and Hospitality Insurance. And Leah, I guess, Levitt, I guess Chris and them, they're based in South Dakota. Where are you based out of, I guess?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Our agency is based in South Dakota, so that's where all of our support staff and our agency co-owners and a couple of our agents work. The rest of us are remote. So my home is at the east gate of Yellowstone. I'm in Cody, Wyoming here. Wow. And so, I'm at my office today and I'm glad to be on the show. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah. And then how long have you worked with Levitt? I know I run into you at some conferences time to time. I guess how long have you worked for the company?
Sure. Actually, at the start of the pandemic, I came on board with Levitt Rec. So since about 2020, I've been working with insurance. So about 3.5 years now.
And I guess, one of my questions, because I have quite a few friends who are insurance, and I always ask them the same thing. What makes you decide to do insurance? Did you wake up one day as a teenager and were like, I want to do insurance?
Oh, I said no one ever.
Yes.
So I guess the roundabout way to say that is I come from a different outdoor hospitality industry. I come from a dude ranching industry. So the national headquarters for the Dude Ranchers Association is actually located here in Cody, Wyoming. And so they're, a small nonprofit agency that supports about 100 members of the guest ranching world. And so I was an administrative assistant there, and we had an annual conference every year with vendors. And so Levitt Rec was one of those vendors and one of the top suppliers for the dude ranch industry. And so I don't know if you've met Damien before, I'm sure you have. Damien Petty became a close partner to the Dude Ranchers Association. And so when it was time for me to make a career change, I was like, hey, I'll certainly give it a go, but I'm not moving to South Dakota. So you guys are going to have to figure this out. So it worked out. They sent me a desk here and, they basically gave me a few tools, said, good luck, happy learning.
Well, you became involved with insurance at a very interesting time, I guess, in the industry when the pandemic was going on. We still have natural disasters. We still have the hurricanes, the Western fires, all those other challenges that go on. You probably have worked with some folks that long for the good old days when it wasn't a disaster a week. Is it just a really rough time to be in the industry?
So I would say yes. It certainly is a rough time to be in insurance. I think it's gone from what I'm hearing from bad to worse. I've only known the worst, so it's kind of all how do we grow from here and how do we pull ourselves up from our bootstraps and figure this out, figure out what's going on and all the changes that are happening and how we can best support each other and learn and grow and really spend the time that it takes to understand the, campground's insurance policy as an owner and such like that. So it's an opportunity for us to really dive in and get to the nitty gritty and figure out what we need to do. It was easy before, I think, just to renew your policy and just say, all right, sign here, keep going. Then you get a 20% rate increase or 15 30, 40% rate increase, red flags come up, you're like a deer in a headlights. What is going on here?
So there's Levitt's insurance underwriter, correct? So you're Explain that to me. That you're sort of a middleman. You go out, you work with the client, and you go out and try and find the best deal with the insurance company for them.
So that is a very good question. The insurance family tree is very large. So I am an agent. The broker is not the best term, but it's something that everybody can understand. So as an agent, I have access to different carriers and different underwriters who actually write the policy. So we have access to 15 or 20 of the top insurance carriers in the campground and recreation space.
So has that carrier network gone through some consolidation too? I'm sure in the last few years, are there a lot less players out there than there used to be?
So there's constant movement in the market. There's carriers that are constantly coming in and exiting. Some carriers that will, have there's a certain rating on each of the policies, whether it says, okay, this is an A plus financial strength, stability. So, sometimes it happens where the carrier's financial strength knocks down a notch. So then we'll move a bunch of policies there. Some carriers are saying, hey, we've had too many claims. We have to raise our premiums to balance that out. So there's a number of different players. I know just in Montana, I've got a new carrier on the horizon that's opening up, playing in Montana. And, a couple of years ago, we had a new carrier come on board that's writing good policies in some of these wildfire areas, which is harder to place. So, there's constant movement. I think it's a sort of a fallacy to think that, in business, you've had the same carrier for 8, 10, 12 years, and then you get the non-renewal letter and you sort of take it personally. You think, I've been with them so long, and I kind of expect, as a campground owner, hey, I've been with them so long, why are they just dropping me all of a sudden? Well, there's going to be change. There's always change on the horizon.
I think that's something I hear from campground owners is they're concerned about whether some of these carriers are going to stick around. I guess, as you guys work with new carriers, what are some things that you guys look for in when you're working with these people and companies and are like, oh, we feel like they're ready to be here for the long term, I guess?
So I guess what we do is I just like to rephrase that question a little bit, and kind of adjust the mindset that it's okay to change carriers. It's okay to reevaluate your policy and expect your insurance carrier to change maybe every 5 years or every 3 to 5 years, in fact. So the change in carriers is potentially a good thing for you because it forces you to reevaluate every line in your policy. Are your building values up to the current replacement cost? We saw that in 2020. The cost of lumber went up, doubled over, went up very significantly just overnight. And so all of those factors coming in and changing a carrier is actually a good thing because it motivates the campground owner to reevaluate their policy and make sure that their coverages are appropriate.
I know something I talk about with Chris Hipple, who's higher up, I guess. I don't know what his official title is, so we'll just say Chris Hipple. Whenever I talk with him, we always talk about how park owners are making sure that they're fully covered. Is that something you guys are more proactive about nowadays, making sure that the park owners are putting all of their buildings, all of their amenities, all of the little things? Because I know in the past, maybe they haven't done that as well, I guess.
So yes, so we are taking the time to advise our clients on how best to have coverage on their properties. We're advising clients, hey, check for the inflation guard on your policies. We can put 1 to 2% that will increase the buildings every year automatically. So keeping track on that is super important. And I will mention Chris Hipple is our agency co-owner. So yeah, he's the head. He's the king of the castle here.
Yeah, I thought he was co-owner, but I didn't want to say it and give him like an inflated title for something, So
No,
So
he gets all the titles.
I
He's
didn't want it to
certainly deserving of it.
I didn't want it to go to his head or something. So, I know you recently wrote a column that we had up on the website, and you mentioned some of the reasons why insurance costs are going up. Could you just kind of go through some of those, I guess, as to why park owners might be seeing higher insurance rates, I guess?
Yes. So rates typically go up every year automatically, just in general. The cost of living goes up every year. So expecting, in the past 2 to 5% of rate increases was sort of normal. These days, it's gone up quite significantly just in premiums. Like I said, as an industry, we're in what's called a hard market right now, which means all of our carriers are raising their rates. So it takes a while for carriers to process those rate increases. So all of the admitted carriers, they file their rates on ISO forms. So there's a process that kind of comes into play. So that's why, after the pandemic, labor prices, they can kind of go up and down automatically. But with carriers, it takes them a while, and you only renew once a year. So we're just now seeing the full effect on, some things that have happened in 2020. Claims in the campground space are much higher than they used to be. Are you familiar, Ben, with the term nuclear verdict?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not so good. Fill me in.
Yeah. So with lawsuits nowadays in general liability claims, what we're seeing is that the jurors are putting in favor of the claimant, and so what's happening is when the judge makes the determination, the payouts on these claims are becoming astronomical numbers. So the once it settles, they're paying out full policy limits. Those payouts are becoming much higher, and so the losses that are in as a result of general liability are becoming much more severe and paying out much more. So what happens as an industry, we have to sort of accommodate for that and increase premiums, because that $1 million check per occurrence, once it starts getting tapped into, then the carrier has to determine, okay, how can we keep up with that? So nuclear verdicts is one aspect of that. Rate increases.
So is a campground owner just at the mercy of this process? There's sort of nothing they can do to control their costs on this at all?
So that's a very good question. So a lot of times what happens is their insurance renewal comes and goes very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so as a campground owner, to be proactive with it, 90 days out from your insurance renewal is a good time to start talking with your account manager to say, hey, can we start reviewing my policy? What can I expect? Can I see line by line? Would it be available to me to get a different quote from a different carrier, and such like that? So starting that conversation early is advantageous, and reviewing your policy, sort of saying, hey, what are my options for alternative routes? Are we sure that the building values are up to par? And comparing your policy to another campground is very difficult, because there's no one campground that's the same as far as building values and revenues. Every situation is so unique, so it's very difficult to compare those numbers. But getting your agent on the phone before your renewal, and even during the mid-policy, if your renewal comes out during your peak season, contacting your renewal in the off-season and educating yourself. I think the more our campgrounds educate themselves on the process of insurance and what actually goes into the policies and the carriers out there, will only help them in the future.
Yeah. Well, we have to take a short break to recognize our sponsored Book Outdoors, and we will be back with Leah in a minute.
Today's show is sponsored by Book Outdoors. If you want increased visibility and higher occupancy, your campground needs to be listed where today's guests are searching and booking. Book Outdoors is the most sought-after destination for booking outdoor accommodations. Listing your property on Book Outdoors is free and easy, and Book Outdoors seamlessly integrates with several popular reservation systems. Register now and get a $25 gift card when your listing is published, plus another $100 to celebrate your first booking. Visit partners.bookoutdoors.com for more information and to get started.
Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, sponsored by Book Outdoors, and we are talking with Leah Bright, an agent with Levitt Recreation and Hospitality Insurance, which is based in South Dakota. And we were just talking a little bit about insurance, what's kind of making the costs go up, what park owners can do to kind of mitigate those costs to some degree. I guess, you mentioned a hard insurance market. So what's going to cause that to start softening? Is it, are there things that cause markets like this to start softening? And I guess, what is that, I guess?
So I guess I don't really have too much good news there. I think things will settle down and, we'll get to sort of a level playing field. But if we can look back, in the crash of the housing market, the insurance rates and everybody's hair was on fire during that time period. And things sort of settled back down. After 9/11, everybody was going through a terrorism fear. Policies were canceled. People were getting non-renewed. And, there was a lot of fear in the insurance industry. So that's kind of settled back down. The hard market that we're in today is, as a result of a lot of different factors, that's probably not going to go away anytime soon. So now's the time to sort of face the facts and really understand where the costs are coming from and buckle your seatbelt for what the future might look like for insurance premiums.
Are there parts of the country out there that they don't have any options, whether it's Florida or the Northern California, where there's so many companies that have pulled out that there just aren't any options left for insurance?
So yes. So sometimes that can be, I guess there's two sides of that coin. So in California, it makes things really simple for an insurance agency because they know, all right, if you're a campground, this is your option for general liability and this is your option for property. We're going to send you to the California Fair Plan. And, sort of that's the end of the road. For some of these other campgrounds where there's several different other carriers in the market, it kind of leaves some room for, what else is possible. And so the markets down in Florida and in California, while difficult, there's not a whole lot of options out there. And so, it kind of makes their insurance journey simple because they say, all right, this is my medicine, this is my pill, I kind of got to swallow this and make that a line item in my budget and move on. In some other places in the country, there's kind of too many options to, really identify, okay, well, let's figure out what the best insurance carrier is for you and how long do we expect you to be able to stay with them.
Yeah. We keep hearing about the natural disasters. Are those like really what's putting pressure on the insurance markets, or is that just like a small part of what's causing some issues, I guess?
That's a great question, Ben. I'm glad you brought that up. So wildfires, hurricanes, and such like that are putting a big strain on the industry. So, let's say your insurance policy, we've got a bucket for that. Well, there's an insurance policy for your insurance policy called reinsurance. And what this does is it protects the carrier from a catastrophic loss. Let's say one wildfire wipes out 7 parks and all of those 7 parks are on the same insurance carrier. So what they do is they buy reinsurance to make sure if they do have a catastrophic loss, they have a plan B, they have a good foundation to mitigate those risks. And so what's happened is the reinsurance costs have skyrocketed, and the reinsurance costs are driving up premiums as a result of that. So the reinsurance is certainly a big factor in our policies, and part of the reasons why there's not much we can do about it for certain locations. I know that a lot of our carriers have pulled out of certain higher risk areas. And so, once you are in a wildfire score area, there's not that many insurance options out there for you to choose from, simply because a lot of the carriers are chased off by the reinsurance costs.
Yeah. I know in your column too, you mentioned there was a short paragraph, I think, on self-insuring. Can you kind of like walk through what that looks like? I think you mentioned in your column, maybe park owners who have non-critical buildings or non-critical sections of their park, maybe they consider just saving money or having money set aside if those need replaced or have issues, I guess. Is that sort of the idea?
Yes, so that is a good point for self-insuring. I will preface that with those campgrounds with bank loans. Please don't start removing buildings off of your policy unless you get approval from your bank and saying, hey, we can negotiate that. So self-insuring would be an option for those parks that don't have any financing on there, and sort of have the cash reserves to maybe cover some of those inconsequential buildings in case there was a loss. Another opportunity, if you do have a bank loan, would be to negotiate a higher deductible. If you can eat the first $25,000 of a claim, maybe that could reduce your premium enough to kind of make it more palatable.
Yeah. Are you seeing, like, we have a lot of large development firms coming in. We have some corporations that are active. Are you seeing some of those groups just doing self-insuring, or are they still looking for insurance carriers, I guess?
So they are still looking for insurance carriers. The trouble is if you have, sort of this catastrophic loss, the insurance is there for mitigating those risks. And so, they're for those larger investment groups, there are some alternatives out there, such as group captives that you could look into. For a larger sort of buy-in, you can get into some of these smaller groups that are set up for the bigger pockets and the larger assets out there. But it's super important to maintain especially liability coverage on your locations for lawsuits and such like that, and maintaining adequate umbrella limits to match the assets, match the value of the assets of the company. So while self-insuring, if you've got, I would suggest self-insuring for those parks that have, their lawnmowers that have been on the policy for decades, and now their lawnmowers wouldn't even cover their deductible. So reevaluating those smaller items on your policy that, really, do I really need to insure our $2,000 lawnmower and such like that, and saving the insurance for the brand new $20,000 zero turn mower, and reconsidering items like that.
I know one of the things that I've spoken with people about too is the work campers. Do you engage in a lot of conversations with park owners about how to tackle work campers as far as like the workers' compensation insurance and things? I know when, like, I've talked to Chris in the past, he said, he's had lots of conversations with owners that are like, I don't need workers' compensation insurance for these people. I guess, do you have a lot of those conversations with park owners?
So I think there is a bit of a shift. I think park owners are starting to understand the risks there, because we have seen claims for work campers, and the penalties against work comp, are starting to come to light once we can, start telling these stories of things that have happened at the park. People are starting to realize, we're talking about insurance premiums on general liability and property coverage, and these premiums are this big. The premium for your work comp is relative to the payroll. So for work comp, people are starting to realize, hey, it's only $1,000 or $2,000 a year that we have to pay in work comp. We might as well just go ahead and get it and check that box, because you're not paying these you're not paying these work campers a lot of money or a lot of value in the site traded. That it's a super low threshold, and work comp is easy because it's dollar for dollar that you pay your employees. That dollar converts to the premium amount. So it's super easy. It's always auditable, and you only pay for what you need.
Yeah.
To quote Liberty Mutual.
To quote I mean, what are some of the other challenges you face when you talk to park owners? Are there like things that park owners tend to get a little stubborn about, or you kind of have to debate a little bit more back and forth?
I'm sure the conversation at shows has been a lot different in the last few years.
Yes. And so what we're looking at, for some park owners is the conversation around the cost of their buildings. And so let's say that a company A has been with the same carrier for the last 8 or 9 years, and they haven't reevaluated their cost for those buildings and their premiums associated with that. And so then when you shine a giant spotlight on their lodge, that goes up from $500,000 in value to, oh, wow, this building now is worth over $1 million. So you're actually having to double your coverages in some instances, or, raise them up so astronomically to get on par with where they need to be. I had a client, and the difference in what was the actual replacement cost and what he had it insured for, the difference in premium was about $10,000. Which was a super hard kind of concept for him to realize, oh, wait, my previous agent let my building values sort of just remain the same over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And now I'm looking at my lodge, and like I said, my lodge is now worth upwards of $1 million, and it's only insured for $700,000. And so, that's quite a bit of difference in premiums. And so, for him, what we've done is we've mapped out a strategy. We went and, we went and said, okay, so we can raise these incrementally and sort of get him up to where the level that he needs to be. But as a business owner, it is their responsibility to sort of watch those things and make sure that they're reviewing their policy every year. And when the renewal comes up, not just to sign on the dotted line, but really to evaluate, all right, let's make sure that this is going up incrementally every year, so that way you don't have to have these humongous jumps when the costs start fluctuating.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of interesting. I think, Mike knows Scott Corey too from Ventura Ranch KOA, and I just saw him a couple weeks ago at the KOA convention, but I think he has a pretty neat, pretty interesting story on how his park, got destroyed by fire. And I know he had some insurance issues on that front. I believe he had to work through, as far as some things not being covered maybe correctly or up to what they should have been. So I mean, I think I've run into a few owners out there that have those types of stories, so it's definitely important for them to keep an eye on those buildings. And when they add something new, if I'm a park owner, I'm adding something new, when should I engage with my insurance agent as far as when I'm putting in this amenity, I guess?
Sure. I would suggest that if it's a fun thing, to contact them way before you decide to input a Wibbit or a mechanical bull or some of these fun activities. Contact your agent well before and say, hey, let's reevaluate the cost. If it's a $10,000 premium addition to adding to your policy, and you're only going to make $40,000, $50,000 in revenue, it might not be feasible. So having that conversation on the front end is super important. When you're adding in new cabins, when you're adding in upgrades to your buildings, expanding and such like that, I would say just contact them before, during, and after. It's not going to hurt to over communicate and make sure that those buildings are covered and those amenities are covered before you get going on them and reviewing them for coverage. As soon as they get added, and as soon as the construction gets completed on those buildings.
So Leah, is this going to get worse before it gets better, or is it never going to get better on the rate side?
I guess that would be to be determined, Mike. I would hope that every park is in a unique situation. Some parks have it easy. I know that I posted that article on Facebook, and one fella commented that the price on his park for his insurance premiums actually went down. So it's really hard to throw out a blanket statement like that, because every park is unique, and we want to make sure that every park is handled in the care and the respect that park deserves. So some places might have it bad, but maybe they only have it bad for 1 year, and then we get them into a new carrier, and then guess what? They get 5 years of bliss in this carrier. Some parks may have run into some bad luck where they get non-renewed a couple of years in a row. So it's really hard to say, but we are trying to be understanding of every unique park and celebrating the wins and being there and as needed for the losses and the hard times.
Yeah. Well, how would people get in touch with you, Leah?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, our company website at lrhi.net. I have a page on there with my information and all of the videos that I've done. And yeah, you can reach me at email and such like that. However you would like to get a hold of me, I'm here for you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. It's always thrilling to talk about insurance. I mean, I maybe that's the first time anybody's ever said that. So
maybe,
but
maybe.
I find it kind of interesting. So, but thanks for coming on, Leah, and it was great seeing you at shows this fall. And
Yes.
Thanks everyone for watching. And Mike and I will be back again next week.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ben and Mike. I look forward to seeing you again soon. We'll talk soon.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com. Show hosts are Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. Executive producers Rick Kessler and Alex Burkett. Copyright 2022, G&G Media Group.